We designed a watercraft that will allow anyone to e-foil. Every detail has been considered for making this an easy yet thrilling experience on the water. Let's get your Flitescooter assembled so you can get flying. Start by plugging the flight controller charging cable into an outlet. Open the rubber cover on the underside and attach the magnetic charging plug. Always check to ensure the flight controller is at least 50% charged before each use. When charging your flight cell battery, place it in a cool, dry location, away from flammable or hot items or direct sunlight. Connect the charger plugs to the battery terminals, ensuring to connect the orange, positive connector to the orange terminal first, then the black, negative connector to the black terminal. A click into place signals that you've made the connections correctly. Hold the magnetic charging clip to the battery as shown to wake the battery up for charging. If the magnet has been misplaced, you can use the base of flight controller to initiate charging. A red light indicates a low charge. A green flashing light will indicate the battery is charging and will progress to full as the battery charges. The unit will turn off automatically when charging is complete, and we recommend disconnecting the flight cell at that time. Okay, let's get the board ready. This is best done with 2 people, especially the first few times. Place the rigid carbon core, flight box cavity side up, on a flat surface. Remove the bladder from its bag and place it face down on top of the core. Slide the bladder onto the core from the front end first, maintaining the bladder flap above the core. Ensure the bladder is well tucked into the recess along the front edge of the core. Carefully stretch the bladder over one rear corner first. Please note that the rear underside edges of the core are deliberately shorter than the top face to make fitment of the bladder easier. Warm, mild, soapy water solution may be applied to the Flitescooter bladder to assist with fitment and ease of alignment. The other rear corner will require more technique, as the fitment between the bladder and the core are tight for maximum strength. While one person pulls on the bladder, the other person can tap the bladder down with the palm of their hand to get it over the core and into place. If you don't have a second person to assist with fitting the bladder, you could carefully place your foot in the flight box cavity to get leverage for stretching it over the final rear corner. Be careful that the bladder is positioned evenly and not creased or caught. Check that the bladder is seated correctly around the core before carefully flipping the Flitescooter over. To inflate Flitescooter, twist the valve cap anti-clockwise to remove it. Push the central valve down, then twist anti-clockwise to release it. The valve will pop up. This ensures the bladder will not deflate when you remove the hose after inflation. Connect the pump hose to the valve and inflate the bladder to 15 to 16 psi. Once inflated, twist the pump hose anti-clockwise to remove and refit the valve cover cap. The Flitescooter e-foil includes the flight jet propulsion system integrated into the hydrofoil fuselage. At the other end of the mast is our patented flight box, which makes assembly super simple. Inside the flight box is a powerful onboard computer. Before installing the e-foil, ensure the orange O-ring inside the mast box is seated correctly. Carefully remove the e-foil assembly from its case and fit the flight box into the mast box on the bottom of the board. As you do this, direct the power cables towards the battery compartment. Ensure that no cables are compressed and that the O-ring is not moved. Check that flight box is evenly seated and flush in the mast box, creating a tight seal. Use the 4 20mm stainless steel bolts to secure the e-foil. Add a little bit of Tef gel to each bolt. Tighten them up with the hex key provided in the cross pattern. When properly tightened, the O-ring will be compressed and watertight. Apply enough force that the bolts are tight, but not so much that the hex key tool is bending. If the O-ring is missing or damaged, or if the bolts are not tight, then the board will leak water into the battery compartment. Take the fuselage tail section from the case and insert it into the fin under the flight jet. Use the 16mm bolt and add a bit of Tef gel to prevent corrosion. You'll need to push and hold the tail in to compress the small O-ring, which will then allow you to tighten the bolt using the hex key. Changing shims alters the amount of stabilizing downforce provided by the tail, and also impacts the balance point and responsiveness of the foil. Take your preferred Flight 500 stabilizer wing shim and place it in position on the fuselage before attaching the Flight 500 stabilizer wing using the 25mm bolts. Make sure the stabilizer wingtips are facing toward the board. Add a little bit of Tef gel to the bolts and tighten with the hex key provided. There's a sacrificial anode inside the fuselage above the front wing. The anode minimizes the galvanic corrosion reaction that can occur when you use your Flitescooter in salt water. Even so, it is very important to regularly check your bolts and reapply Tef gel to prevent damage or seizing. Remove your Cruiser 1800 from the wing bag or travel case. This time, check that the wingtips are facing away from the board. Check that you've got the correct bolts for Cruiser 1800. Ensure you're using fuselage cover 1, which comes pre-installed with Flitescooter. Add a little bit of Tef gel to the bolt. Make sure you tighten the bolt securely so there's no movement between the wing and the fuselage. Now to connect flight cell. For smaller riders, we recommend completing this step near the water's edge so that the board is lighter to carry. Once in a suitable position, open the battery compartment by twisting the 2 latches to open the board lid. Inspect the black rubber seals for damage. Make sure the seal and the corresponding surface on the lid are clean of any sand, grit, and water. Clean if necessary to ensure a tight seal, with no chance of water leaking into the battery compartment. Take flight cell by the handle and carefully lower the base of the flight cell into the board with the warning label facing up. Ensure the cables are out of the way first. Secure the battery in place by rotating the locking latch. Connect the orange power cable to the orange battery socket and the black power cable to the black battery socket. You'll feel a click with each successful connection. Close the lid and wait for the startup beeps. You'll see the lights on Flitebox activate. You may then open the lid again to begin the pairing sequence. Place and hold the base of the flight controller on the pairing target on the flight box between the 2 flight cell cables. Watch the LED lights go into chasing mode, scrolling amber over and over. Close the lid, locking it down with the latches. Make sure to check that it's sealed tightly. Hold the plus button on the flight controller for 7 seconds to put it into pairing mode. The words, "Press mode to commence pairing," appear. Then press mode button to confirm. The words, "Looking for new pair," will appear. Once paired successfully, the LEDs will change to a yellow flashing and then light blue color, once also connected with the flight cell. Pair the wireless safety key by pressing the center of the key on top of the flight logo. After a few seconds, the flight controller screen will read, "Safety key detected." Once pairing is complete, you are now ready to test the motor. This safety lock feature ensures that riders cannot accidentally spin the flight jet impeller by accidentally bumping the throttle trigger. To arm the motor, pull the throttle trigger 100% and then release it completely. Press and release the minus button. Pull the throttle trigger within the 5-second countdown window to activate flight jet. Always verify the jet is clear and in a safe location before activating the motor. Remove the handlebars from the Flitescooter bag and turn them upside down. Place the Flitescooter wrist strap over the bottom of the handlebars and carefully slide the wrist strap to the very top by holding onto flight controller. With your other hand, lift the latch on the back of the handlebars. Place flight controller into the cradle of the handlebars and close the rear latch. Locate the handlebar cap on your board and remove it by gently pulling up. Turn the handlebar lock counterclockwise so that the opening lines up with the handlebar cavity. Check that the bottom of the handlebars and the handlebar cavity are free of sand and grit. Insert the handlebars into the cavity. Turn the handlebar lock clockwise until it stops. This will keep the handlebars locked into place. Okay, your board is ready to ride and take flight. But first, please ensure you're familiar with local laws, licensing, waterways, and water depths and currents, which can be affected by tide times. It is your responsibility to abide by your local laws, speed, and safety requirements. In all cases, do not operate Flitescooter within 150 metres or 500 feet of people. Do not Flitescooter further from shore than you can return by swimming. Constantly monitor the battery of the flight controller and the flight cell at all times. The battery times are variable depending on many factors, including wind, current, weight, speed, and power consumption. We recommend the use of a helmet and a PFD, and also letting a friend know your plans before you go. We also recommend you take a lesson with an approved flight school or refer to our How to Flitescooter video, which shows just how easy it is to get flying. Now, it's time to get out on your Flitescooter and experience the thrill of flying over water.